So welcome back guys to another video, and today I'm going to be doing a response to a Facebook post I saw. My friend Darrin made this post and I was like, man, this would be a fantastic subject to make a video on. He was asking, what are your favorite 16-bit games on said consoles? And he had every console from that generation and he named his favorite game. And I have to say, this was kind of tough for me to do because it made me realize that I really enjoy the 16-bit generation. Something about it, it's retro, but it's this aged like fine wine. You know, you could play something from the N64 or PlayStation or Sega Saturn, and it definitely shows its age. But at the time, it was this technology-wise, it was fantastic, but now it's just kind of like a jagged mess. But the first game I want to be talking about is going to be on the TurboGrafx 16, and I have to say I wasn't that nostalgic with the TurboGrafx 16 because I didn't grow up with the TurboGrafx. I heard about it through magazines, and maybe I had a couple of friends that maybe had TurboGrafx, but it was all about Nintendo and Sega. So it wasn't until years later watching YouTube and realizing what the TurboGrafx 16 had to offer. Now, my TurboGrafx 16 game of choice, this is going to be the HuCard version, is going to be Zonk. Zonk is just a HuCard on the TurboGrafx 16, and I absolutely love it. It is such a fantastic shooter, and sometimes people refer to this game as a cute 'em up or cuter shooter. I just think it's a really fun shooter. It's a really fun game. I love the animations to it. The game was based off of the Bonk series. I think this is like a futuristic Bonk, maybe his like great-great-great-grandson or something. It had an edgy 90s look to it. He had sunglasses on and a little lightning bolt mohawk. It was a lot of fun. I had such a fantastic time playing this game, and I do have to say, if you have a TurboGrafx 16, this is one that you definitely need to have in your collection. Now, with the TurboGrafx CD add-on, my favorite game would have to be Ys Books 1 and 2. Now, I recently, about a couple of years ago, finally got to play Ys, and I can see why those who have played Ys really wants to give it the love that it deserves, because, you know, from first glance, some people may think it's like a Zelda clone, but Ys is his own thing, all entirely. And what I really like about this game is I love the soundtrack. It was done by Yuzo Koshiro. It's got this great metal at some parts and fusion in some parts. It's just got a really nice like buffet and palette of different music styles, and I really enjoy that. I love the anime cutscenes as well. That's something that, you know, at that time was a rarity that you saw something like that in a video game, and it even had voice acting. And you know, voice acting in games in the 90s weren't always the best, but I have to say Ys Books 1 and 2 actually has a pretty decent voice cast. If I'm not mistaken, the main villain in Ys Books 1 and 2 is voiced by the guy who did Skeletor. So that was pretty awesome. I thought that was a nice little thing, and I do have to say, you know, TurboGrafx is getting really collectible. It's getting hard to find games for a decent price and consoles and whatnot. So if you have the Wii Virtual Console, if you still have a Wii, you can, you know, purchase it on the Wii Shop. But, you know, if you want to maybe emulate it and play it on a ROM, there's nothing wrong with that either. Now, the next game I want to talk about is for the Sega Genesis, and this was a tough one because I love the Sega Genesis so much, but this is a game that really gets overshadowed with the other games that came around the same time with that series, and that is Castlevania Bloodlines. You know, Super Castlevania 4 gets plenty of love, Rondo of Blood gets plenty of love on the PC Engine, but Castlevania Bloodlines had something a little special, and I remember when I first played it, I felt like I was playing something a little bit more mature. I liked the fact that the zombies actually had blood, and there was like flies jumping off of them, showing that these corpses were rotting and decayed. And the game has the right balance of difficulty to it, where there's some parts of it that's really hard, but it's not overly hard, if that makes any sense. That sounds really bad, overly hard. But I'll tell you one thing, this is a really fun game, and I definitely recommend it to people that love the Castlevania series, if for some reason you haven't played Bloodlines, definitely play it. And also for the Sega CD, this was kind of a tough one because I didn't learn until about probably like 10 years ago that the Sega CD actually had a pretty good library of games. Most people, when they think of the Sega CD, they think of the FMV B-rated point and clicks, where the Sega CD actually has some pretty good RPGs and has some really good shooters, and I love shooters. Lords of Thunder. I absolutely love this game because I feel like Lords of Thunder has a great balance of, dare I say, hardcore casual. Casually in the sense that it's easy to pick up and play, but hardcore in the sense that it does revolve around a good amount of strategy to it. There's multiple ways to play this game. There's different weapons that you can upgrade, different characters you can play as, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. Also, the soundtrack is just badass. It's just an amazing soundtrack. Now, I know it is on the TurboGrafx 16 and PC engine, but the Sega CD version just has a very special place in my heart. Now, this next one is kind of controversial, because I want to be talking about the Neo Geo AVS, the consoleized Neo Geo from SNK. Now, some people say that this is a 24-bit console, and I'm not going to get into whole specs and whatnot. You guys can debate with the comments below, have at you, but it did come out during the 16-bit era, so I did want to add it to my list. And my favorite Neo Geo game on the AVS, or just favorite Neo Geo game in general, is Metal Slug. I love some Metal Slug. I mean, so much in the fact that when me and Jamie did our first Let's Play, my girlfriend and I, when we were recording our Let's Play, we played Metal Slug 3. I love all the Metal Slugs, but the first one, the OG one, has a very special place in my heart. I love the detailed sprites, I love the difficulty, I like the comedy slapstick humor it has to offer as well. I mean, I'll admit, I like Metal Slug more than Contra. I know, some people are like, what the hell, I've had this debate with so many people where we talked about Metal Slug or Contra 3, and I'm like, Metal Slug all the way. Something about it really, really just, it gets you pumped. I love it. And the last 16-bit game I want to talk about, of course, is on the granddaddy, the Super Nintendo. And some may argue that this is the best 16-bit console. They're all good in their own ways. But my favorite Super Nintendo game would have to be Final Fantasy III, or Final Fantasy VI as it's known in Japan on the Super Famicom. But the reason why I love Final Fantasy III is because it showed me the world of gaming that I would see more in the future. This cinematic, like theatrical kind of video game that was just more than bleeps and boops and whatever. It was actually like this really compelling story, and you know, not many RPGs have a large amount of characters. Each character had their place in Final Fantasy III. Sometimes you played those with JRPGs and you had that character that was just there because, well, they needed someone to fill in the healing class or something like that. Final Fantasy III doesn't do that, and I love the soundtrack. I love the main villain, Kifka. Kifka is like the Joker of the Final Fantasy series. He just wants to watch the world burn. And I love it, man. It's probably one of my top 5 favorite Final Fantasies of all time. I really enjoy it, and because each character has their own ending when you go throughout the game, it has replayability, so you want to play it and you want to advance different ways to get different endings to see what exactly happened to your party at the end of the game. So yeah, Final Fantasy III is one of my favorite, if not my favorite game on the Super Nintendo. Now guys, that is my list of my favorite games of the 16-bit generation. Now, this is my list, this isn't a definitive list. This is just something that I came up with, and probably 5 minutes while I'm editing this video, I'll think of other games that I should have added in there, because it was a difficult subject to talk about, but a very fun one. And big thank you to my friend Darrin who came up with this subject. And guys, I do have to give him a quick shout out because he is the owner of Warp Zone Games down in Ohio, and I'll have a link on the description below to his Facebook if you guys are around the area. Hell, if you guys want to go on a road trip and visit one of the best video game stores in the country. I say that not just because he's my friend, but because I see his Facebook posts and I get so jealous that I can't go there. He has so much great stuff. If you love imports, that's the place to go. I mean, he gets so many great trades and stuff. I'm just like, wow. It's like the retro scene of like 2005. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. But anyway, guys, leave a comment below. Tell me some of your favorite games of the 16-bit generation. Go down the list. Leave it as a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And as always, happy gaming.
Can't get enough of Access Gaming Podcast? Be sure to check out our audio podcast on podomag.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you have a YouTube channel or podcast you'd like to share, be sure to check us out on Facebook on our group page and join the community. As always, guys, thank you so much for all the support and happy gaming.